Hey, what's going on, guys? Mike Patrick. In this video, I want to talk about the flower of life. I want to talk about Terrance Howard, the flower of life. Now, he did an interview at the Emmys. Okay, he was being honored for his great role in the show Empire. Okay. Now, what happened? I'm sure a lot of you guys saw that interview, and what happened was, he got asked a couple questions, pretty, typical questions, simple, questions, and then he started getting into this thing about the whole flower of life and how Pythagoras was looking for, different theories and different formulas to figure out the universe and so on and so on. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. A lot of you guys are probably Empire fans. Now, my thoughts on that. Ultimately, I think that was fantastic. I think that was great. Now, why do I say that? He exposed, once again, you heard me say this a lot lately. Like I did a video a couple weeks ago about Billy Carson and Dame Dash partnership and how that was great, especially for a particular group of people who are around the Generation X age, who are stuck in their ways. Most people get stuck in their ways after a certain amount of time. And they were now exposed to information that a lot of them would have never given any chance. And they were being exposed to it by someone who they looked up to. A lot of people that is in the Generation X age, or a little younger even, a little older even, look up to Dame Dash, but they looked up to him for specific reasons, okay? Because he fit their current paradigm. He fit into a box that made them feel comfortable, okay? You were comfortable associating Dame Dash with hip hop, the fast life, drugs, money, and all the typical things, okay? That are supposed to be for a particular group of people, all right? And that made people feel comfortable. Nothing challenged your perception about who Dame Dash used to be. It just made you comfortable and it added fuel to the fire. But what happened is that person who you looked up to, who made you feel comfortable, he brought forth something that probably made a lot of people feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would say, man, I don't know about Dame on this. I don't know what he doing with this, man. I ain't on all that. That's crazy. Blase, blase. We know the things people would say. So it's the same thing with Terrance Howard. Okay, he's a pretty big time actor, especially in the African American community. When it comes to movies that a lot of African Americans find kind of iconic. Um, Most people, I mean, all people, they may be iconic movies, period. But especially, you have certain movies that are iconic in the black community. I'm gonna say like the movie Friday, Boys in the Hood, Baby Boy. Certain movies like that are like just iconic staple movies in the African American community. Okay. So he also had a movie. What's the movie he played in when he was a pimp? Hustle and Flow. That's like an iconic movie in the African American community. Okay, so a lot of people are big fans of Terrence Howard from that movie and maybe a few other movies I can't think of off the top of my head, but definitely with this show Empire. Now we know movies like Hustle and Flow, shows like Empire, they attract the attention of a certain demographic of people, okay? And that demographic of people did not expect, I don't think anybody expected, but definitely a particular demographic of people did not expect to be watching that interview and to hear that out of Terrence Howard. And Terrence Howard appears to be a pretty brilliant man for many different reasons. And with that said, I don't think he didn't know what he was doing, okay? I think he sacrificed himself to be criticized, okay, to be judged, and so on and so forth, because he knew that the type of fans that he has, for the most part, would judge him and ridicule him and criticize him for that. Now, we know all the typical things that goes on after an interview like that coming from Terrence Howard, especially being observed by the people who would be watching that interview and who's fans of the show that he stars in. All right, we know what Terrence Howard lost his mind. Terrence Howard's crazy. What the heck is Terrence Howard talk about? Blase, blase, blase. Some of you guys are probably the very ones who said that stuff out your mouth as soon as you saw the interview or heard of it. And the thing is, guys, that needed to happen because, like I said, it's no point in him going into a room with a bunch of philosophers, okay, and quantum physicists and scientists and you know and so on and so on. You know, you get my point. And spiritual gurus, right? And saying that because that's, you know, for one, they're going to latch on to it. They're going to listen to it. They're going to respect it, okay, for what it is, you know, and they're not going to criticize it or judge it because they are used to hearing that type of vernacular. They're used to that talk. That's their vernacular, if that makes sense. And so the thing is, he wouldn't be judged by them, but it wouldn't do any good to bring that type of information forth or plant that seed to those people. They already are on that wavelength, that frequency, okay, to ponder those things and to theorize those things and to try to put those types of things together and to think on that level. But a lot of people who watch Empire, okay, a lot, not all, I'm not trying to be judgmental or stereotypical, but let's face it, there's a lot of people who watch Empire who they were not trying to hear that, and that messed their head up. And since it messed their head up, then they thought that something was wrong with Terrence Howard's head, okay? And a lot of times what we'll do is, if we don't understand something, we'll try to criticize where it's coming from. So it's no different than being... But see, the thing is, it all depends on what we're talking about. Like, so if I'm sitting in class, right, and sometimes it is, what I'm about to say is, if you're sitting in class and a student is not understanding something, is it the teacher's fault or the student's fault? Now, I've talked about this before. Sometimes it is the teacher's fault, you know. But let's just, for the sake of what I'm talking about right now, let's say there really is a limited a limited ability for the student to be able to grasp certain concepts and to comprehend things, okay? Let's say that the student truly does have an actual learning disability, as opposed to it's the teacher's fault and the teacher is failing the student, okay? Let's say that the student actually has a learning disability. Now, it's two ways that student can react. That student could be humble and understand that they may have a learning disability, and it may take them a little longer or take extra work for them to grasp something. Or that student can be arrogant. That student could be, you know, I guess you could say haughty or you know, conceited, whatever, to think that it's not that I have a learning disability. It's not that I just can't grasp a concept, you know, and that type of stuff is way over my head. I'm going to blame you. I'm just going to say you're crazy for knowing trigonometry and trying to teach it to me. You're crazy for knowing geometry, calculus, and trying to teach it to me. So anything that I can't understand, okay, and whatever is not all in my head already, and I might have very limited information in my head, and anything that's outside of what's already in my head, I'm just going to write it off and judge it as crazy, okay? And that's pretty much what a lot of people try to do in situations like this, okay? So just because, like I said, in a room full of, you know,